This one goes out to the Artcasters. Ooh, Artcasters! I say you're casting your spell, Artcasters. Casting your spell. Ooh, you're gonna cast that spell. Strike a hell. Whoa! Ooh. Hi, 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 hi.
Hey, welcome to episode 471 of Artcasters. That's crazy, Scott. We're getting closer to 500. That's wild. We'll have to do something for 500.
Oh yeah. Well, we always try to
Something
do
cool.
something big, but that's 500 that's a pretty big milestone. I don't know. We'll see.
That's
Yeah.
huge. That's huge.
It's crazy. So if you guys are out there and you want to, you can easily listen to an episode a day and probably get almost like a year and a half.
Yeah, I got
That's crazy.
And I got a playlist on my channel with basically all the Artcasters in one playlist. So it's all there, easy to find.
I love it. Okay, let's make the rounds and kind of introduce ourselves and let people know where to find our stuff. As usual, you're on my channel. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. And also, please consider checking out Jacob's Apartment. It's a story about two polar opposite roommates. One's just lost their father. Jacob, the main character, his father has passed away, and he's kind of trying to figure out his identity and meaning and whether life is worthwhile and all sorts of deep questions. And he ends up in that process falling for his roommate, who's an atheist and kind of questioning her belief system. And they're both kind of in that
Oh,
all I'm seeing are swirling things on. Oh, nice.
You froze for a second.
Okay, because all I saw were like swirling lines for a second. But yeah, so check out Jacob's Apartment, where dreams and reality start interweaving, and you learn how to deal with your once you into adulthood. Also, check out two stories.
It's funny you
go ahead.
mentioned the book. It's funny you mentioned the book because Scott was just reading it. I noticed. What a coincidence!
Yeah, it's just a weird thing. What a coincidence!
The way life works is so strange to me.
So yeah, be like Scott. Pick up Jacob's Apartment, and also check out two stories: a graphic novel about faith and mental illness, trying to destigmatize hard conversations. Basically, just talking about my journey, learning how to deal with depression and young adulthood again. So yeah, those are my two books, and then check out No Saboteurs. The Sun Eventually Sets on Everything, and that's my wares. That's music, and that is free on all streaming platforms. Scott, what do you got? Where can people find you? Magnets, Scott, how do they work?
Yeah. Josh is referring to a new video that I just put up on my channel. Go to Circworks Art Labs on YouTube, where I took the classic Woolly Willy magnet toy. If you remember that, with little metal shavings, and you get the little magnet, you move it around and create facial hair. Well, I kind of came up with my own version of that, and I created it and everything, and you can see that process come together. And it came out. It's fun. You should definitely check that one out. So that's over at Circworks Art Labs on YouTube. Also on my website, circworks.com, my graphic novel, I guess I would say now. Before I just said comic, but I guess now that's the trade of Young and the Dead, Kids versus Zombie adventure story. Young and the Dead, No Zombies Allowed. You can find that. The full story is now available on my website at circworks.com. So check that out.
Dude, you guys, I would highly. Oh goodness! I just watched Godzilla -1 for the first time because I'm one of those guys, like, people will hound me for years, and I'm like, yeah, I'll watch it. And then finally I watch it, and I'm like, yeah, that was good. But the ending reminded me of Young and the Dead. You guys should check it out. It's really good. Is all I'm saying. It's a very good Good story.
Yeah, Jim Lujan gave it a glowing endorsement. He called me and he told me that how much he liked it and everything, and we talked about it, and I had some questions because I always like to get feedback, like what people thought, and it's just because there's some mystery and stuff in the book. I'm like, was that too obvious? But it seems like any twists or turns, they weren't like totally obvious or anything like that. So it was good to get some feedback from Jim on that.
Yeah, and it resolves, which is
it's a complete story. It's hopefully I wrapped up all the loose ends and everything like that. So
the ending where like the go ahead.
The fact that Jim read it is endorsement enough.
Yeah.
He doesn't read anything.
That's a fair point.
He doesn't read anything more than like a supermarket flyer ad. So he was really into it.
I love it. I really enjoyed it. I felt like a kid reading it, and I agree, it's good. I also remember that ending part where you revealed the two brothers that basically run the whole area, and it ended up being like a dream, but then it was like a myth, and then I don't know. It felt a little unresolved, but that's lost. Never mind. Okay. So, I know, I'm tired. I warned you guys before we started recording. My hits aren't going to hit. All right, we have a special guest, returning guest, coming back to the show, good friend of the show, Javier Hernandez of Los Comics and El Muerto fame. Jav also teaches comic courses, and so we're going to be kind of getting into the topic of teaching art and teaching comics. Oh, what's that you're casually reading there,
Scott?
Look,
Scott did it again. He just happens to be reading the book, and then you start talking about it afterwards. That's amazing.
This is the manga version of El Muerto.
Yes. El Muerto is a high school Japanese foreign exchange student in Japan in control of a giant robot, Skeletron. So my old giant robot in Gigantor. But yeah, Josh was mentioning, so I'm a comic book creator. Known best for El Muerto, the Aztec zombie, which I started back in 1998. So I think that's 27 years now. Wow. I'll be hitting the big 30 with that character in a couple of years. So that's
wow.
You guys talk about 500th anniversary and 30th anniversary. So we've been at this a while. I think we love what we're doing. So that's good. That's a good sign.
Yeah, none of us have quit yet.
Quitting is not an option.
Exactly.
When I quit, it'll be taking me out feet first, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, I'm in the middle of running a Kickstarter campaign, which I know we'll probably be able to talk about, but that's literally the most recent thing I'm involved with. And because it's the first day, you know how you guys know this, and people out there, you got to keep updating on all your social networks, and if you hit a milestone, you got to announce that. And then I even had to make it a graphic because we knocked through the first what do you call it? The first
stretch goal.
Thank you. We knocked through the first one, and we're about to hit the second one already. So I didn't even have the graphic made up. So I had to take an hour to make up the graphic. I don't think I was going to be doing that today. So that's a good problem to have, but you really got to have your schedule open when you launch, because you got to be able to just go with the flow.
Absolutely. And there should be a link in the description for the Kickstarter. So definitely check it out. I backed it today, and you should too. I've got.
Yeah, there's a link in the show notes. It's The Man from Mictlan. You need to check it out.
Yes. Yeah. Mictlan being the Aztec land of the dead. Yes. And also, I teach comic classes at different schools and places. So I just wrapped up last Thursday. I finished my last spring class. The Thursday night class I teach locally. But next week I'm starting the summer schedule at that same place. So I'll have the students there twice a week. And we got them all signed up already. So looking forward to it.
I love it. Jim said he pledged $1 million, so I guess you're good.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, I'm out of here, guys. Thanks.
It's like you just disappeared.
I don't need to bother with us anymore.
That's where you put on the
Yeah.
Yeah, you put on the James
Cody,
Bond suit and just like, bust out of here. Um, I love the fact that you teach these comic courses, and I think it's really good to teach. And what's interesting to me is like I teach like Art 1, right, for like high schools and
Right.
stuff. And one thing that I noticed, we have one comic project, right? Like the whole semester. It's like one, because I got to teach them like fundamentals of
Yeah.
everything. But the funny thing is, I work with some other teachers who all have that same comic project, because like the idea is we collaborate with the English department, the English classes write the comic, and then like the art classes like draw it. And what was surprising to me, because we've been doing this a while, right, was how many of the art teachers were shocked and how hard it is to teach comics when they taught comics. So I think it's a really interesting thing, because you really have to have like a plan with how you're going to introduce comics, because comics are I think like meticulously kind of planned. Like it's a very like there's loose organic elements to comics, but to pull off a page of comics, it really does require a lot of like planning and preparation and thought. And I think it's a little different than, because it's sequential. It's a unique medium. So how do you kind of begin to teach like comics courses, and then you're kind of teaching for a gamut of different age ranges, in different scenarios. So like I'm curious about all of that. Like, so I guess first off, like, how'd you end up teaching comics? And then let's go from there.
Well, I like your comment that you said, comics are difficult, talking to other teachers. And and they're unique. And I like to tell it to the parents. Like, I always thank the parents for bringing their kid to the class, really for supporting their child's interest in something.
Yeah.
I mean, not just bring them to my class, which is cool, but my parents supported me. My parents just kind of left me alone. It wasn't like, oh, what are you doing? Don't do that. It's just kind of like, they didn't understand it, but like, okay, he's doing something. He's creating some. So, but I tell parents, your kid has these ideas in their head. Look what they just drew, right? No matter the age of the kid. That idea was in their head of these characters that they made up, and then the scenario that they're in, and then they had to write the little dialogue balloons. I mean, your kid's pretty special, because your neighbor's kid maybe is a good writer, or maybe your other neighbor's kid's a good artist, but your child has this interest, facility, whatever you want to call it, to blend those together into what we call comics, sequential art, narrative art, whatever. So yeah, I always want to remind the parents that, please encourage them to do what they're doing, even if they don't do comics when they get older as adults.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you'll know this, you being a high school teacher. I mean, they're problem solving, so you can apply that to whatever you do later in life. But if they're really that creative, they stick with it. They can do things besides comics. If they like video game, if they like animation, fashion design. I mean, they can branch off to different things as they get older, but
visual storytelling. I mean, that's basically what comics are. So, I mean, there's so many different ways you can apply that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can branch off into music and never pick up a pencil again, but you're like, hey, I want to sing a song or write a song or play a guitar or something.
Yeah, because it unlocks like the, on the critical thinking like part, where it's like helping people learn how to problem solve and kind of think outside the box of like, okay, I have this problem, which is all art is a problem we have to solve, right? And how do I get to that solution? And that process of back planning and like really thinking about it and struggling through the different components and elements to try to solve that issue or that problem of story that you're trying to tell. If you apply that same kind of mentality to like anything in life, it's like a huge, it's a huge thing. It's like, I feel like all of us probably have moments where like, I'm trying to figure out like, how to fix like something in the house. And I have to kind of think about it like I would a comic, where it's like, okay,
right.
How can I solve this problem? Like, what do I need to learn? What tools do I need? Like, what's my time planning going to be like? And so I do think kind of unlocking that's really important. Yeah.
Well, this is gonna blow your theory out, but I give up. I leave the sink and I go back and make a comic and I call the plumber.
Yeah, I'm kind of there too. Most of the time, that's about my scenario too. But you know what I mean? It's like it is applicable to other things, I think.
We can't Scott. We can't all be like Scott, sit there and start taking the TV.
Yeah, rebuilding a house.
Yeah, that's he's got the lab coat to prove it. I've seen him. I've watched it.
No, Scott is amazing with that kind of stuff. That always mystifies me because most artists I know we're not really like crafty, and we're crafty in art sense, but like when it comes to like guy stuff, like I can't do that stuff. Like
those aren't the tools I was looking for. I need.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's come from early in my career when I was struggling and I had to work as in construction and stuff like that.
Right. Well, you picked up a bunch of life skills that
I was telling my girlfriend, it's like, I'm not something about not being a carpenter. But I just I figure things out, and it's probably not the right way to do it, but I can make something look like halfway decent. But it's probably like if you were to actually go to an actual carpenter, they'd be like, you're doing this all wrong or whatever. But but I don't know, because I figure things out. Because it's just the creative mind rather than like the mathematical mind or whatever. Right. It's just like, okay, this is how I would do it. So, and as long as it looks all right when it's done, then who cares how you put it together, But
my dad was like that. I mean, the man, he left school at 3rd grade because he just wasn't into it and decided to just help out the family. But he fixed all our cars. He can take a carburetor apart. He would sit there like you're saying, Scott. He would kind of just look at it, and I'd be impatient. Dad, take it apart. Let's go. So no, and it's got to see how it's made, or the plumbing, or lawnmower. He'd have to look at
that kind of stuff. Mechanical stuff, not so much for me, but like if it's something without like I guess moving parts,
right. No, it's a great skill. But Josh, you're asking how did I teach comics?
Yeah, how did you end up kind of teaching comics? And
well, the reason I got into it, this was like 22 years ago, so I've been teaching almost as long as I've been making comics professionally. I was working at a job at a screen print company in the art department. Good money, but the art is not cartooning at all. It's just designing logos and whatever. Joe's Automotive tune-up shop, and then you make up a logo, whatever. So I wanted something new besides the comics because I was already doing the comics, but it was independent comics, so it's not like it was making me money I could live off of. But I wanted to do something more creative in my day job. So I just went to the local community center, literally like 5 minutes from my house, because I knew they taught classes, and I walked in there. Hey, I'd like to make a proposal for a class. What do I do? Well, fill this out. Okay, comic book class. It's going to be 5 weeks, 1 hour a night, Wednesday night, 5 weeks, paper, pencils, stuff like that. Supplies provided for the students. And I just started figuring out how to teach the class. Yeah, my first day, I was kind of like, my first couple of classes didn't go too good because, silly me back then. Here are these like 8-year-old kids ready to draw, and I'm like, well, let's talk about Will Eisner and when he's
yeah.
Yeah.
It's important. No, kids, it's important. Will Eisner used to do his own script in the wait. That's not interesting to you. Let's jump to Jack Kirby and Stanley and Ditko. No. So I realized, okay, Javier, these are kids. Forget your whole lecture things. Get right to the drawing.
Yeah.
Some paper, pencil, kids. Let's do some character designs together. Give me some suggestions, whatever. And give me a story idea, where to start the story. What character goes to the park, whatever. What happens next? And then they all raise their hands. So yeah, just get right to it. This is for kids, obviously. And I've never felt comfortable teaching college age kids because at that point they're past all the primes, the primal stuff.
Yeah.
Which I love teaching for kids because it's so simple. Like it's like giving a horse a carrot. Like he'll take it. But
yeah, they're not at that age where they're scared. Like,
Yeah, no,
I don't know
exactly.
if it's like there's an age where like all of us draw, and I've seen this a lot with because I teach primarily high school kids now. I've taught like college kids and stuff in the past, and it's like there is, I think, one of the biggest hurdles with like young adults to teach them is trying to get them in the mindset of that kid, in the sense of being a little fearless and trying stuff. But also like, to learn how to critique and objectively view their
Right.
work. It's like, those are like, I think, the two kind of big things. But it is interesting. There's something that happens along the way when people are trying to learn how to draw, where a lot of people just kind of get scared. Like it's like I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, it's surprising how much, like, when you're a kid, if somebody gives you like crayons and paper and stuff like that, you're just off to the races. But like as an adult, you're like, oh well, what if it looks bad? Like it's a lot of like fear. It's interesting how much teaching art is like teaching people how to confront
No, I've said that
fear and
before.
just
I
kind of
said,
be
you
bold.
said get a group of kids, they'll all draw. You know, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, they'll all draw. Bring them back a year later when they start hitting 13, 14. And half of them will not want to draw because you know what it is, because they get self-conscious all of a sudden, and like,
Yeah.
oh, she's way better than me. I can't draw as good as her, or he draws better than me, or I draw stupid, and you can laugh at it. No,
Yeah.
well, I'm not gonna laugh at it, but yeah, that's what I noticed. Because why does every kid draw? As they get older, they drop off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's interesting because they all
That,
drew.
and I think a lot of that creativity, by the time you get to like college age, a lot of that creativity gets beat out of you by society.
Right. But the good thing about high school and college age students and older, well, they're your people. Okay, they're not just taking it because their mom dropped them off at the summer class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this person, she really loves comics.
Yeah.
And she's looked for a class that teaches comics. Now, but the other day, someone asked me, he was an adult, like 30 or 40. He saw I was teaching these kid classes. He's like, hey, what are you going to teach for adults? I want to take one of your
You
classes.
should.
Yeah, we actually got a comment as far as not being able to find classes for adults.
Oh, I
here,
see.
so,
Yeah, I see that
yeah.
in my area. I was kids like adults want to. No, Dylan, I get that. But this is what my answer was to that person. So I have a way of making comics. It's not a secret. I talk about it all the time. So it's not that, oh, I don't want to give my secrets out. But I just feel, for me, like my method of, like the way, here's what I do. I think of a story, whether it's a full graphic novel or a 20, 30 pager. I think of it for weeks, for months. Just think. I don't write any notes. I just think. Think of the scenario, think of little action pieces, whatever. And then I'll draw a rough draft. Okay, I have an idea of the story. Let me draw a rough draft. However many pages. If it has to be 120 pages, 120 pages. If it's 30 pages, 30. I draw it all out. Sometimes I'll scribble dialogue in there, sometimes not. And I'll edit it, throw pages out, redraw pages. Okay, but here's the final manuscript, 120 pages. It's ready to go. Let me start drawing it. I draw it, I pencil it, then I ink it, scan it, letter it, and color it if I color it, or black and white. And that's my process, and I'm sure a lot of people do that, or variations thereof. I feel like people want to take a class. They probably want something more structured. I'm guessing maybe Dylan can chime in. And I don't want to have to retool my teaching for that person. That's not, because it's not how I do a comic. So if I teach you, I'm only going to teach you how I do it, which I know is not, maybe an organization wouldn't like that. Not that what I'm doing is wrong, or it's like a nasty way I'm doing it. It's like I don't want to learn the structured way where I teach them how to write a script, because I don't write scripts. I personally find the idea of reading a comic book script
kind of more like Marvel method.
What's that?
Are you more Marvel method then?
Yeah.
It's like a single person Marvel method.
When I was a kid, when I'd read the origins of Marvel Comics, these other books by Stan Lee, who wrote all the. That's where I learned how to make a comic. Like, oh, I see. So Stan would say, this is what he would say he would do. We'd come up with the plot, me and the writer, or I'd come up with the plot. I'd tell the artist the story. Dr. Doom does this, blah, 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 blah. Then the artist goes off and draws the book. So to me as a kid, it planted in my head, okay, so I'm just a one-man operation. I'm a one-kid operation. I think of the story, and then I draw it out, and then I dialogue it. Like that's literally why I do what I do, because that was the Marvel method. And that works fine for me. I know people like us, they're just single artists, they just write and draw their own book, but they'll write themselves a full script.
Yep.
That's fine. That's what they want to do. That's fine. I never say that's the wrong thing to do. But they're writing a full script out, dialogue and everything. It's like, wow, okay, that's fine. And then they thumb it out and then draw it. I don't do that. So I always feel that my method is, like I said, I guess I'd walk someone through it and show them in a class, but I always just feel that, either them or like the higher ups who run the school or wherever hired me, like, hey, wait a minute, aren't you showing them a script first? It's like, no, that's not my thing. So that's why I don't teach older folks. Not that I don't like them or I don't want to tell my secrets. It's just that I feel, so for the kid, I mean, they're a blank slate and they don't even think of a story. They sit down, they start drawing it, what I mean? So working with kids is a whole different process. It's involving, but it keeps it for me very like, I'm not trying to impose my method on them. It's kind of just like, okay, let's do the basic thing, just design. So, I always tell the kids in my classes, if it's a 5-week class, whatever, like, okay, let's design something. First we do that 1-page comic where I'm at the board. Then I designed a few characters I use all the time, real simple. Taco Dave, Eileen, she's an eyeball. And I have the kids draw that on the paper just to get used to drawing something. And then I go, let's put Taco Dave in a scenario. Give me a setting for a story. Oh, the park, the beach, Magic Mountain, whatever. Taco Bell, whatever. And I pick one. So I'll pick Taco Bell because that's kind of funny. A taco at Taco Bell. So I draw Taco Bell. I draw the little Taco Dave character there inside. And then I ask the kids, okay, anything else is happening? Is there another character? Is Taco Dave saying something? And then I'll pick one of the suggestions and do it. And then I'll ask them, now you guys draw that panel. Let me stand here, just wait for you to draw it. Now draw it. Okay, what happens next? And then the kids start competing. Oh, someone else comes in or a Martian comes in, whatever. And I'll pick one and I'll draw it. And they'll draw it. And I'll do the third panel. For the fourth panel, I started doing recently, okay, guys, everybody finish the comic the way you want. Because y'all going to have good ideas. Just, let's see all the different endings. And then at the end of the half hour or whatever, they finish, some of them, their first ever comic book page. Some have done it before, but and then as the semester goes on or the class goes on, then it's like, okay, now design your own characters. Give me like a brief sentence, just a 1 or 2 sentence description of who they are in the story. Oh, she's the one who gathers all the other characters, whatever. And then I ask him to draw a rough draft. So draw a rough draft. What's a rough draft? You draw it really sloppy. You draw it really quick. You draw it on this small, cheap paper, blah, blah, blah. Don't be precious. And of course, they're precious with it, but and after they draw the rough draft,
always
I look at the rough draft and ask them to explain to me what's going on, to make sure it's clear, or if I have a question. And then I go, here's this 11 by 17 professional comic book bristle paper, like real artists use, and then they draw it on that.
Oh,
there's a 1-page comic exercises. So yeah, they get the exposure to like a real comic material, and then they pencil it, and then usually we give them like a micron, like a 05. Okay, now this is what we call inking. See, trace over it, whatever. And then if it's time in the class, semester, whatever, here's some color pencils, color it. And anyway, at the end of the session, they got a 1-page comic, full size. And that's basically my method for the last 22 years, from grade school, middle school, even high school kids. That it works with them really good.
Yeah, I think that's pretty dead on. I think that the stages of that, of like roughing out a page, kind of making sure the sequence makes sense. Trying to teach kids to not be precious is tough. That's one of the things I try to harp on with my students too, where it's like, man, it's hard for people to just draw and not worry about how pretty it is,
Yeah.
just get the concept across. Like,
well, The more
and it's it'll be a little frustrating, and then I have to remember, there was a point in time where that was really hard for me,
right.
because I just was like, oh, but I want it to look good, like,
No, right.
you know what I mean? Yeah.
But there's plenty of kids who are just gung ho. They'll just sit there and draw it rough draft. Do it really quick. And then when I review it with them, because to me it's like a low stakes assignment.
Yeah.
I go through it with them. If I don't get something, I may bring it up, but I may not. You know what I mean? Like, you know what? That's what they did. That's it works for them. No one's gonna.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be shown to like an editor at Dark Horse. Hey, this is terrible. Well, I know it is.
Yeah.
But the kid did it. So I've learned to do that. I've learned to pull back. Like, I'm really there. I mean, I hate to say this. It sounds like I'm cheating the kids and the parents, but I'm not. I'm really there to provide them the paper, the pencils, and the rulers if they need it, and some examples on the board. And then mostly I just like to walk around the class as they're working. I just love hearing. When you're in the room, it's quiet.
Yeah.
You hear the scratch of the pencil. I love when it's really quiet and all I hear. It's like, man, these kids' brains the synapses are firing, as they say, and they're just drawing the character out. I just like to walk up and look down at their paper. Okay, there's got one guy, and then the other characters here. And anyway, it's I get paid to watch kids draw comics. I'll go over.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I that's probably one of my favorite things about teaching art too. Is there's something really addictive about being able to kind of like light a little spark and watch the fire grow. Like it's. I think that's really cool. Like, and kids surprising you with like their creativity or like their out of the box thinking. Some of these kids too are just like incredible artists, and it's always fun. Like, my favorite thing as an art teacher is if I have a kid who's better at drawing than I was at that age. Those are my favorite students. Like, there's two of my favorite students. One is the one who comes in and doesn't think they can draw. Those are like some of my favorite students, because anyone can draw. Like, it's a craft. It's a trade. Now, can anyone draw well? Like incredibly well with like a little bit of help? Probably, obviously it's like anything. Not everybody's going to play in the major leagues of baseball or whatever, but it's like, there are like most kids, like most people, I'm pretty convinced like most people can draw if they just are willing to do the work, and so that's really fun, is like being able to see that kid who like thought they couldn't draw, and then within, by the middle of the semester or whatever, they're drawing like realistic drawings of hands or something, something really hard to draw. And suddenly you're like pointing that out to them, like, hey, you came in and you said you couldn't draw. What is this? Like, that's awesome.
Dylan
also, those kids who like smoke where you were at.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Dylan has a question.
Dylan, how long are these classes? Yeah.
Yeah, mine are usually an hour, sometimes an hour and a half, but mostly structure an hour.
And the students are able to go from, the kind of the concept on the roughs and everything to the Bristol in an hour and have something to show, like a page.
Oh, no. So this is like a 5-week class
okay. Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's
a
session is an hour, but overall it's okay. I'm like, wow. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay,
they actually finish a graphic novel within the 5 weeks, Scott, in Hov's class.
Yeah. Get them ready for 24-hour comic book day.
Yeah.
Josh, you mentioned like you mentioned the student who draws better than you at age 15 than you did. Yeah, I'll run across a student like that. I'm just like, I'll tell him, go, man, I did not draw this good at your age.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just washes over, and sometimes they get kind of like, oh, wow, okay. I mean, I'll be honest, it doesn't cost me anything to say that.
Yeah, and actually that's like a really good tip for anybody who might be like thinking about teaching. It's like one of the first things you learn teaching is like, you never want to pretend with kids and even adults. Like, if you BS, like, they smell it and they will have no it's like Whereas if you're just like straightforward with kids, like even if I'm doing a drawing demo in my art classes and I screw up, if I'm like, hey, I screwed up, I'm going to fix it this way,
Right.
that actually like that's the kind of thing that like will make people engage in class. Whereas if you're just like, I am the genius and you are here to learn from me and I am,
Yeah.
like that's people smell that, they don't like it. So it's like,
Oh, did he pause again? He's probably got the spinning wheel.
He froze. But I
am getting like, I don't know what's up with my connection today. Yeah, I got all those spinning wheels.
Yeah, that's what
I
we
assume
say.
it was you because you said you were really tired. You just freeze up like
Yeah,
what's that sandwich?
Yeah.
That's to recharge.
I have to load.
But yes, the teaching. So yeah, I learned to just get to the actual drawing right away. The other thing I learned too is for me is teaching, and I usually tell the people who hire me, I go, no, for me teaching is it's part performance art, part education and teaching. I want to be up at the board. I always try to, throw out little zingers with the kids and little funny comments and this and that to keep it interesting. I don't want to be pedantic and boring.
Yeah.
Especially for kids, right? Younger kids, you don't want to lose their attention. So I try to keep freewheeling. I do a lot of joking with them too. But I noticed that keeps that whole hour environment very engaging, very, last week when I was teaching the last class for the spring session at this place here in South Whittier, this is like the, I don't know, 8th session I had the kids already. So we had been through the whole process. So I just decided I had some mini comics folded up, it was like 8.5 by 11 paper. You fold it and cut it. I had a whole bunch left over from another class. I brought them in. I go, okay, guys, you know what? Let's do a warm up. We always do a warm up drawing, right? Like draw something you'd find in the ocean just to warm up, or something you'd find at an amusement park. And then, okay, so they do that, and I go, okay, now here's what we're doing today. Everybody gets a mini comic. Check it out, guys. It's a little paper folded in there. So it's 7 pages of story and 1 cover. You guys just start making make a story. Don't design the characters on a paper. Just sit there and just get right to it. And they did. I mean, they literally sat down, opened the thing on page 1, and the guy starts drawing something. So I just kind of, 40 minutes, I just kind of sat at the front of the class, just, supervising them. Well, it was kind of testing me, and I was testing them. Yeah, this group was ready to work on a mini comic without any prep. I didn't tell them the week before we're going to do this. But amazing, they all had character ideas in their head, and they had a little story to go with it. I mean, that's just amazing to me still.
Yeah, I remember when I was younger, just basically just going straight to the page. It wasn't a lot of conceptualizing or anything like that. Just other than what's in your head.
Right.
And it's just like, oh, boom. And that's the way you make comics. And usually most of them were on the back of like my homework assignments or something like that. I didn't even have like, I didn't even have like regular, like blank, blank 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. It was all, you flip it over, there's like a math equation on the back or something like that.
But you're right, Scott. A kid doesn't have any concept of pre-planning or preconception. Just like start drawing.
Yeah.
The only person I can think of that is the older person was Jack Kirby. As far as I know, from everything I've read about the man, he never had like story plots. He never had rough drafts. Okay, I got to do Thor number 127. Here's the papers. Okay, it starts drawing. Like, what? And then that's on top of doing Avengers the same month, X-Men, and Fantastic Four.
Jeez.
Don't ask me how he worked. I mean, that's amazing to me. So
yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's almost like you wonder if that was just straight necessity that drove that, because it's like if you have to do 3 books a month, like you don't really have time for the roughs, No,
it was necessity, but the genius was that they were good. They were all good stories. Visually, because whoever did dialogue. I mean, different. They're very detailed. Think of all the suits of armor the gods would wear and these elaborate costumes and the fight scene. I mean, necessity. A hack can be good at doing necessity, but he did 3 hacked out books. This guy did 3 or 4 great books. Plus, he had to do like 3 other covers for other books.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a special case, though.
Yeah.
By the way, everybody go see, if you're in LA, go to the Skirball Museum and check out the Jack Kirby exhibit.
How much longer is that going on for? Because I've heard about it, but
it's perfect for you. It goes on till March of 2026.
Oh, okay.
I'm serious.
And it's in LA. I'm sure I'm sure in that amount of time I'll be able to see it. That's cool.
I got to get up there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just sounds pretty incredible. I have friends who've gone and obviously like posted pictures and stuff from it. So yeah, I definitely want to make it there. This is funny. I had a buddy who just got back from Barcelona. He went to Barcelona for like vacation over the summer, and he came back. He also stopped by Fez, and I texted him. I was like, "You need to pick me up a Fez, right?" So I go over to his house. I get my Fez, which is like on our dinosaur above the hearth, and and then he hands me a mug, and it's a Chris Ware Rusty Brown mug, and he shows me. It turns out while he's in Barcelona, they just happen to have like an installed like Chris Ware like just exhibition at like the art school there, and and he showed me pictures and stuff. It's like full page, like all of this stuff, and I'm like, what are the odds that like they're just you randomly travel somewhere and there's like an exhibit of like a cartoonist you're obsessed with, you know? What a bizarre thing. And he found it on a lark. Like he was literally just walking to like a record store there, look at records, and was like, "Wait, Chris Ware?" Like what? Anyhow, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, those don't knock the Spaniards. I mean, years ago, maybe 8 years ago, whatever, there was a huge Steve Ditko exhibit. I think it's the first ever Ditko art show that I'm aware of.
I think Europe in general. I mean, I think they just have more of appreciation for comics over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing what they had. You know, I'm sure they had American collectors, loan them stuff, but they had tons of original pages, and they did the walls up with Ditko characters, and everything was black and white. And so, yeah, like you're right. It's that European sensibility. They really go all out.
But I just think it's cool there's that at the Skirball, because the last I haven't been to a comic or like museum show in a while. The last one I went to was like, man, it must have been like early 2000s or something, like Masters of American Comics. But that was like a life-changing show that I went to. So like and everything I've seen from that from the Kirby one at the Skirball looks like it's like that. So I'm pretty excited about that. Speaking of Ditko, you're doing another Ditko book?
Worse, I'm doing another crowdfunder campaign next week. I did a Steve Dick. I know Scott's all.
Is there a pre-launch page for that up?
Yeah, there is. I didn't give you guys a link. This one's going to be on Indiegogo.
Okay.
So Indiegogo, and then just look up Steve Ditko zine. Yeah, a couple of years ago, I did a zine called "You Don't Know Ditko." It's after he passed away. I wanted to do something to memorialize him. So yeah, I did my first zine. I did a comic book size. It wasn't photocopy. I had it printed, so it was probably nicer than most zines. Maybe a zine person would say it's not a real zine. Hey man, you didn't do it underground style, like whatever. But so I'm doing a second one now. It's been a couple of years. I have some new article. I did some interviews with a couple of people, and the reason I jumped into production on this, I mean, I don't want to do two crowdfunders at the same time, but I got invited to go back to Johnstown, Pennsylvania for
what they
call DitkoCon. So there was one. There's been two already. So there's this place in Johnstown Museum, Steve Ditko's hometown, called the Bottle Works Cultural Arts Center. So it's it's a community art center, music, art, fine art classes. And the guy there, Matt Lamb, the director, is a big Ditko fan. After Ditko passed away, he just started realizing, well, you know what? We need to let the city know that one of their greatest sons created one of the most recognizably famous properties in the planet of all time, Spider-Man, on top of everything else he's done in comics. So he teamed up with the family. The Ditko family still lives in Johnstown. the brother, nephews and nieces and such, sisters. So the Bottle Works is hooked up with the family, the Dicko family, which is good. And they put on DickoCon back in 2021. So they invited me out there because I had done the zine. So I was like,
Yeah.
you'll be on our Dicko expert panel. Like, wow. Okay.
Awesome.
So anyway, and then shortly a year after that DickoCon, I got an email from the guy Matt. Hey Javier, we just put a mural up in Johnstown, right? Matt did a Doctor Strange Spider-Man mural. He had to get Disney's permission because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Displaying these corporate characters on a public art. We want to do a second mural. I'd like you to do it. It's like jaw drop, a mural for Dicko. So he gave me the dimensions of the building, 20 feet tall by 120 feet wide. That's like a big ass building. So I did, came up with something. They printed it out, they installed it. So I couldn't go 2 years ago to the DickoCon, but he invited me to go this year. So I'm finally going to get to go see my mural.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, on the back wall there. And I'll have that's why I want to have a new issue of the Z now. That's why I rushed it into production, and I have to have it crowdfunded so I could, get the money, get it printed, and then have it with me when I fly out to Johnstown on September 27th.
That's exciting. So, I'm glad you're getting to go back too, because that was just I don't know. It seems like the perfect kind of scenario, where you have such an appreciation for his stuff, and it seems like his family also has a really good appreciation of you. So it's like that's a really good.
Yeah, that's like extra icing on the cake. That to know the family, especially his nephew Mark. He lives here in LA. Real cool guy. It was so surreal on the plane there. Well, there's two reasons. The plane it went from LA to O'Hare Airport, Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Never been to Chicago O'Hare Airport. That thing is like a planet. Like I can't even imagine.
I've been there once, and I got pizza in the airport, and I'm like, well, I guess I've had Chicago pizza.
That's my favorite
pizza, but I haven't, other than just landing there and being in the airport for a layover. I've never really been to Chicago, but
yeah, that's easily my favorite airport in the U.S. Because it's just it's chill. I don't know. It's much more organized than LAX.
You must like walking. I had a 25-minute walk from my landing to the next plane. That's insane.
Well, because it's like a mall in there too.
It's like 10 malls.
Yeah.
It's like 10 malls. So then the plane from there went to Johnstown, and it was coming in at night. And I'm sitting by the window looking out at the black sky, and then I saw this huge beam of light shining up. Like, what the heck's that? And I realized, oh wait, Johnstown. It's near the site where the third plane went down for 9/11.
Oh.
Because it was in Pennsylvania. It was So there's a memorial. There's like a beam of light. And it was funny about that. Not funny, but what's weird about that weekend, it was September 11th.
Oh, wow.
So I told Mark Dicko, I go, the only reason I would get on the plane on 9/11 anniversary would be to come see your uncle's show.
Yeah.
He thought that was funny. But the real surreal part was, so the plane's landing and the stewardess gets on the mic. Okay, welcome everybody to Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And then it really hit me like, wow.
Yeah.
After all these decades of reading about Johnstown, Dicko's hometown, will I ever go there? Do I have a reason to go there? Like, I'm here.
Yeah.
So that whole weekend for me was such a magical thing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful town. It's a small town. And it's literally like you go in the middle of the town and you're surrounded by hills. Like it's in a basin, I guess, which is beautiful, but it's also the tragedy. I guess they've had 2 horrible floods, like infamous floods, because everything is in the basin. Yeah. Everything can get flooded and people can get killed and such. Jeez. So, but anyway, that's one of the reasons that they want to promote Dicko too. Like, we're not just Johnstown, the flood town. We're home to one of the great American cartoon giants in history. So anyway, I'm looking very much forward to going back this time for sure.
I love it. I'm excited, and I can't wait for the next You Don't Know Dicko too. That'll be pretty cool. I thought of something randomly when you were talking about the kind of person who'd be like, that's not a true zine. I was like, I want to, it would be fun to do a short comic about like snobby zine police. Like, it's just because we've all met them. We've all met the snobby zine police, This is not a zine. Anyhow.
It's like the indie punk band member, like, oh, you're doing pop punk. We're
back when I was doing Threadless shirts, one of my favorites was this is like at the peak of when Threadless was making like the most banger shirts on the planet. They made one of my favorites that just said, I listen to bands that don't even exist yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that kind of, yeah.
That's funny.
I'm kind of excited about that. That's really cool. Yeah, I think like one of the things that's really interesting about and that's good about you teaching comics too is I feel like I had to observe a bunch of teachers because I'm a new high school teacher, right? So I had to do observations and stuff I shouldn't say had to. It was kind of an honor because it's cool. I get to like sit in other people's classes, see their teaching techniques. And one of the things I noticed was the best teachers, like they all had different strategies, right? They all had different approaches and stuff like that. You definitely need like some sense of like a game plan because never go into a classroom without a game plan because you're screwed. But it's like, but they'd all like the one through line with the best teachers that I observed was the fact that they care and love art. Like they love the thing they're teaching. And it's like, I think that makes it compelling. Like, regardless of the technique, if I was in a class where I could tell the instructor like really loved the subject, it's like way more engaging and interesting. And that's why I think like you're kind of the perfect person to be teaching comic courses because you love comics. And it's like your main job is like share what you love and facilitate. That's basically it. And I think that's kind of perfect because like there's a lot of people who might like I guess my point is like there's a lot of people who might teach comics or something and not really love comics. You know what I mean? I think the fact that you love comics it allows you to get excited when you see the kids making these things and stuff. It's like, yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this already. When the kids were working in the class last Thursday, I told them that, hey, remember, this is the last class. Like, tonight's the final night. We're doing the class. And then one of the kids, he was like, he said this on his own. He's all, oh, okay, well, my life's going to go back to being mundane after this. And it made me feel, it brought a smile to my face. I thought it was cute. A tiny part of me got like, oh, God, you're kidding, right? Please don't go and do something weird.
Well, yeah, you can always you've got the tools now. Now you continue and make comics. You don't have to be Monday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
and like you said, you're just there to kind of push people in the right direction, and I mean they're the ones that are creating and doing it. It's no reason why they can't continue to create comics after the course is over.
Yeah, that's what I tell them.
They should.
No, I tell them now that you know how to do it, go home and do it. But it made me feel good because like that, because that means every hour he comes to that class, he feels 100% like welcome and encouraged to do whatever on his paper. I mean, it was a huge compliment. And I thought that was really cool that he said that.
We do have some questions coming in. Some of these were addressed at the beginning of the show, so you maybe do a rewatch. But yeah, Javier does provide the supplies and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, of course, we always tell the kids, it's paid for by the school wherever I work. But yeah, everything's provided. I don't want them to come unprepared or, hey, I don't know how to buy this or whatever. No, we got everything you guys need.
I think that's great that they're offering that in comics too. I think that's a really cool thing.
For sure.
Yeah, I would assume I would hope there's similar classes in wherever you happen to be, especially if you're in I guess a fairly large area. Like I would assume there's something like that in Arizona here where I am. I mean, and if not, I mean, it's not quite the same as having somebody there in person to kind of guide you through it, but there are a lot of you know, I've got an online class on YouTube that's geared towards a little older audience, but I've also done a course for kids on a platform called DIY.org. I think there's a fee for that one, but there's stuff out there, you know, there's definitely stuff out there. And
Right.
And if you you know, it might be something like Javier in the beginning mentioned that he just, you know, he approached the community centers and kind of, you know, gave them a proposal on that. So if it's something that you're interested in teaching, you know, then you obviously can make that happen. I'm sure people are looking for programming like that.
Yeah, and I think that like Javi is a good example of somebody who like makes stuff happen. Like he's not waiting for, you know, the big two to call up and you know what I mean? Like he's gonna put out, like, if he wants to make a book, he's gonna make the book. Like, and I love that you approached the teaching like that, where you're like, hey, I want to teach some comics classes. What do I do? You know, and or you know, hey, there needs to be like a museum show of like Latin American artists. You know,
Right.
and like that's like the fact that you kind of will make stuff happen of things that should exist that you don't see existing. You're like, well, I could do that. You know, I think that's a really good. I don't know. I think that's a good kind of spirit. You know.
Yeah, and like with the Ditko comic, I assume that's just something you wanted to do on your own, and here it's led to you know, being invited to the Ditko Con and everything like that. I'm guessing, yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, yeah, I even go farther back. I always, you know, like talking about this, or whether I'm getting a movie made out of the comic or being flown out to Ditko Con. Everything started because back in 98 or 96, 97, whatever, I'm going to make my own comic professionally. I'm going to work on it, damn it. And I published it. And I sold a couple of copies that show. But, you know, the mighty oak came out of that little acorn.
Yeah.
Everything I've done, like even talking to you guys, like I want to be talking to you guys if I never made that first comic, because I would not have probably got into comics. I wouldn't be a publisher or whatever, creator. So yeah, everything goes back to that one.
Yeah, and for those that aren't familiar with El Muerto, I mean, Javier, I mean, there was a movie based on his property starring Wilmer Valderrama, right? From that 70s show. Yeah, speaking of Fez. Yeah, so I mean that's just, you know, the universe, you know, you put things out there and the universe comes calling, I guess.
Yeah,
and I think. Oh, go ahead.
No, you gotta want to put it on. Like you guys said, you gotta want to. I want to see this character out there, so I did it, and I wanted to own it from the beginning. So I self-published, and everything I've done pretty much has been self-published, or you know, get hired to do a mural or to teach classes and stuff. But yeah, I'm not waiting. Like you said, I'm not waiting around for the big two to call me.
Right.
I mean, when people go, would you do something for them? Oh, you know, if there was a contract where I could do a Spider-Man story the way I wanted to, I would. But I'm not going to pitch it.
Yeah.
I never do it. That's fine. I want to make sure I can do it in another Muerto comic.
Yeah. I think most of us are in that same boat.
Right.
Yeah, but I do think there are a lot of people, you know, I'll even notice this with like, we kind of started at the top talking about when you're teaching older kids, a lot of it's like kind of encouraging them and pushing them to like push past their limits. Because a lot of the time they'll be like, I can't. And also it's a lot of multimedia spanning Uncle Hav 100%, Chris. And a lot of the time it's like fear, right? Where it's like, well, what if I fail, right? What if I make something ugly? What if I draw something and it's not how I wanted it to be? You know, that kind of stuff. It's the same thing with like all of these things where, you know, a lot of artists that might be very competent and totally ready to teach like, you know, art classes might be out there thinking, oh, somebody should set up this at a community center. And then they'll be like, yeah, but it can't be me because I'm not, you know what I mean? Like that self-doubt, I think and kind of can be like a self-sabotage. I think a lot comes from just being like, hey, this thing needs to exist. I'm going to make it exist. A lot comes from that.
You'd be surprised how many times I've walked into a community center or a library or something and proposed I can do a comic class for you. They're like, "Oh, that's perfect. We have so many kids. They love anime. They want to clap. They want to do comics, but we don't know anyone that's comics." Like,
I mean, Dog Man's one of the best-selling books in America right now.
I mean,
you know,
comics are bigger with kids than probably they are. Probably bigger than with kids than they've ever been. Really, it's not. You know, when you're coming from like Marvel and DC, it's just a different world, and you know. But I mean, and it's just so weird how the landscape has changed so much, and like, and it's split before when it was definitely a male dominated, you know, art form, and now it's pretty much 50-50, you know.
I'd say it's actually like males are less in the art form.
It might be.
What I've noticed, at least recently, because at least from teaching, I will tell you, my most talented students tend to be girls. Like man, and I think that might be a cultural thing of like, again, people are discouraged to kind of follow the arts a lot of the time. I think, especially in circles like that.
And that's 100% because of anime, I would say.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. You know, every class I've taught,
or manga.
Like every class I've taught for 22 years, like I go to every class and probably there'd be maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 kids, maybe, who's read like an American comic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're just not touching them. They know the movies, they know the video game, the cartoons, but they don't touch the comics. But they certainly have read every Dragon Ball, every JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, whatever it's called, every Demon Slayer. Right. Yeah, it's fascinating, Scott, how when I was a kid that got all the kids into comics. I remember in my elementary school. But yeah, and in comics they sold 100, 200,000 copies normally, just a regular comic. And yeah, it's completely different. I mean, it's a way smaller audience, but plenty of kids love drawing comics. A lot of my students, they mentioned Dogman. Oh, Dogman this, Dogman that. Yeah. So they're reading comics. They're just not reading Avengers, Batman, Justice League.
Yeah, and I think if they're reading anything Marvel, it's more like Teen Titans or something. You know, like it's like these kind of different properties. It's interesting. But I think the cool thing about comics or art in general is not only are you teaching people how to like problem solve and stuff, but you're helping them learn how to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that might be the addictive thing about making comics at the end of the day is that it's just such a good method of communicating an idea or a story, you know? Yeah.
Well, you're grabbing the person by the shoulder. Hey, I got a story to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of telling them, they read it. They read your work. A lot of times my kids will tell me in the classes, they'll go on and on. Oh, I have this idea for a story where that. I go, well, no. I go, this is not a talking class. This is not a speech class. This is a comic class. Don't tell me about it. Draw it. Let me see it. Draw the characters right now. Yeah. You know, put that energy into moving your hand and the pencil.
Yeah.
And I say it in a nice way. I mean it in the right way. And they're like, and then they put their head down and start doing it. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. I also love the fact that it's not a class that's a lecture class. I think the best art classes are going to be hands-on. It's a studio class. It's not, you know.
Yeah, studio time. I would say kids, it's studio time today. Just draw.
Yeah, we're not in an art history class. You know, like, although I do feel you on that. You know, that's something I always have to be careful of. Is like if a kid asks me about like an artist I love, I'm like, okay, I cannot go on a huge tangent about this like artist I'm obsessed with. I'll keep it real brief, you know, because you know, like I mean, like Hav, if a kid asks you about like Steve Ditko, it's gonna be hard to not just go off about Steve Ditko.
But that's easy. It's like, oh, you know Spider-Man, right? I know you do.
Yeah.
The guy who designed the costume and all the villains and that's Steve Ditko. It's like boom, that's an easy one. Chris Ware to a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Or Robert Crumb, God forbid.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've had to bring in like comic anthologies and stuff, and examples of work, like painters, that kind of stuff. But yeah, Crumb's one of those ones where I'll have to go through the book with like sticky notes, like covering a bunch of stuff, because I'm like, this is not going to be shown in a high school class. I can't do that. Yeah, you guys have to find this stuff on your own. I'm not facilitating it.
It's funny about Ditko and Kirby. You could literally walk out right now to the street and just ask the person, "You're the Spider-Man, right?" They're gonna say,
"Oh yeah, yeah."
Okay, the guy created it, co-created it, was, or or maybe Fantastic Four will reach that level now.
Yeah.
Well, Jack Kirby, the guy, Captain America, yeah. The guy who drew it his name is Jack Kirby. Oh, okay.
Yeah, we need to be in a world where that name gets as known as Stan Lee, though. Like it should be as known as Stan Lee.
That's what I love about the Skirball Museum. It's very well curated, and there's all these little plaques, little notations.
Yeah.
And they have like a big Fantastic Four Galactus cover, which is smart because the movie's coming out.
Yeah.
So everywhere you read, they talk about Jack Kirby and Stan Lee worked together. Jack Kirby was the designer, the artist, the storyteller, visual storyteller. I hope people read all that stuff because they're going to walk out thinking, oh, wait, but I thought Stan Lee created everything according to what I read. He's in every movie. That means just because he was in every movie didn't mean he created the whole movie. You know? Anyway, I'm not here to trash his name. Right. I'm just saying. But you're right. Kirby should be as well known as Dr. Seuss. Great American artist. Like Tim Burton.
That goes just as well for like Bill Finger with Batman.
Oh man!
It's just.
Have you seen that documentary?
Look, I'm so
I don't know. I'm not sure if I have seen it, but
it's so good. Yeah. It's a documentary maker. I can't remember the filmmaker. What was it called? It's called Searching for Bill Finger. Or something Finding like Bill Finger.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it's like, it's a crazy documentary because it's like this guy who's just a documentary maker finds out that like Bill Finger passed, and ends up like doing it. He wanted to do a documentary on Bill Finger, and then he ends up like meeting the daughter of Bill Finger, and like his whole family's like poor and like he's had this rough life and all this stuff, and like. They end up like through the documentary, like they end up like doing like a lawsuit against DC Comics, and then the documentary ends with the name in the credits, like his name actually in the credits.
That was killer.
Yeah.
But it's a really compelling story because if that documentary hadn't been made, like he probably would have just like the family never would have gotten those points or those rights.
You come out of that film cursing Bob Kane's name again.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, look it up, folks. Bob Kane, the co-creator of Batman.
Yeah.
Co-creator. Anyway, I don't want to turn your show into like a trash the old timers, but.
Yeah. And I mean, like, again, there's.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of that's still going on in the industry as far as, artists not, getting, their fair share of what they create.
I hate to say this, but every time there's a new Marvel or DC film that comes out, and then some writer artist like who worked there the last 10, 20 years, complains he didn't get money or credit. I'm like, okay, 20 years ago by now, we all know,
right? Yeah,
the story.
Yeah,
anything you create for them. It's up to them to decide if to give you credit. I mean, you get paid for your work when you do it. Once you leave, there is no guarantee you get your name put in the movie or
right.
So I don't have much sympathy when I hear these guys, talk about, hey, I didn't get invited to the premiere. I didn't get.
I get it, but it's also, it's also the industry too. You got to put blame. I mean, you need to be more aware going into it, especially with the history that comics have had.
Right.
But that doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
No, of course not.
But to be fair, here's the kind of tacking on to what Hav is saying. I was an art director for 10 years. I don't own anything I made at that company.
Right.
You know?
But it's different because you're, I mean, I know technically comics is work for hire, but you don't, when you work for the ad agency, you got benefits.
Yes.
You were supplied.
That's what I was.
They gave you a computer to work on. You weren't using your own computer. You weren't paying for your own supplies.
They weren't paying you
You're
like
basically
slave wages. Yeah.
When you're a comic book artist, you're basically everything. You're like a freelance artist, only you don't own anything you create. I mean,
you're a very inexpensive hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a messed up industry. It's gotten better though. It's gotten a little bit better. Usage rights are a little, you know, a good example. Weirdly enough, we were talking about Dogman. Like Dogman's a perfect example of things that have positively happened in comics. I mean, Pilkey. I believe Pilkey owns quite a bit of that.
That's a whole different industry than like the Marvel and DC kind of comics industry.
Well, the big two,
I mean, Scholastic.
The big two are supposedly better, but
right.
I mean, are they?
I've always been curious, like Liefeld and those guys, but Liefeld, he talks about it so much. You know, so it'll be a secret forever. But he got some pretty good deal when he created Deadpool and such. I mean, I shouldn't say pretty good. I don't know, but he seems happy with it. It sounds like he gets something.
Yeah. I don't know how that works, but There, I mean, there was somewhere in with the lawsuits and something. You know, there's something where if you sell a certain number of copies or something like that, I mean, I'm not really, I'm not in the industry, so to speak. I'm outside the industry, but from my understanding is that, I mean, there is something, especially if you have a character that becomes that popular. But
well, another example is like you have like Gaiman and the Sandman, where it's like I believe he like owns the it's kind of a weird thing where there's some kind of ownership.
Well, yeah, that's with like a Vertigo or something that's a creator-owned imprint. Yeah. Or I mean, they're
kind of co-create.
I don't know. The Marvel Epic stuff. Most of the people that publish through Marvel Epic, that's why Vertigo don't exist anymore, because they don't, Marvel DC, they don't want to give up. They don't want to give up creator.
You could say Neil Gaiman don't exist anymore, but we won't get into that topic.
That's a fair point.
Right.
But I'm gonna keep teaching. I love it. It's always good to see the new batch of students. Scott mentioned something earlier, I think, about the kids working on the Bristol board, and you guys mentioned studio time. A lot of my longer classes, like the semester length one, I had one recently up in Chatsworth area. It was a semester length class. We did a lot of initial stuff in the beginning, basic, foundational, But kind of once the kids figured out their rough draft and characters, almost every class was studio time from that moment on. Because I wanted nothing more to teach them as far as the basics. So let's get class started. Let's do the check-in question. Let's do the warm-up drawing. Okay, everyone bring out your bristle paper. Work on your comic. Either draw it, ink it, wherever you're at. Letter it or color it. And what do I guys?
You and I'll ask you and Josh this too, especially since Josh is teaching high school students. Do you ever get any pushback as far as working traditionally versus kids wanting to work digitally? Is that?
I know in my classes it's Art 1, so it's all traditional media.
Right.
School I teach at, or most schools, like they'll have like a multimedia class that goes over digital art. So I really try to keep it traditional in the sense of just learning the foundations, because I want them to learn, line and color and like color theory and like shape and perspective and like all the basics, So it's like and rendering, like they need to learn how to do rendering and just basic, like the basic stuff, like giving them all the tools in the kit. And then that way, if they take like a multimedia class, they can use those principles, because it's like the foundation, like all I'm doing are foundations. And so it's like, it's all traditional, which is a lot of fun because you get your hands dirty and like, it's been fun for me because like I have to use tools I haven't used in years. and I love using. So it's like it's fun to paint. Like I love painting. I'm really pretty good at painting, and I've done so much art in ink for the last like 20 years. Like getting my hands dirty and painting is really fun, or like charcoal, that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's my approach. With me, it's just analog stuff.
Yeah, in my semester length comic class I just talked about, I had 2 students. You know, they would do the first couple of weeks exercises on paper notebooks. Mm-hmm. But we got going on the comic. They both asked me like, "Oh, I'm gonna draw it on my tablet." Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like
for my son, he'd probably like if he were to take your class, Hav, he'd want to do it probably on his iPad. You know, because he likes drawing on his iPad.
Yeah. No, I'd say fine. And so they.
Yeah. Okay.
Just because I don't draw on the tablet doesn't mean you can't. So I would never stop a student from doing that.
But I think the good thing, the thing to remind people is, and this is because I have had questions like through YouTube and everything, like, yeah, I really want to be like an artist, but I can't afford like a tablet or whatever. I'm like, yeah, or I can't afford fancy art supplies. And I'm like, yeah, you don't need any. All you need is a pencil.
Oh, dude.
Pencil and a sheet of paper.
Okay, I really want to bring this one up. One of my favorite assignments I did like last year, because I'm a big fan of making good art with cheap materials. And so I do demos where I show them how to make like gallery ready, like drawings of animals using 1 colored pencil and 2 markers. And it's like on cardboard. And you can do so much with like 2 crappy Crayola markers.
Right.
A freaking Crayola set of colored pencils. You don't need fancy materials. Like, you can make art with coffee. Like you make art with anything. One of my favorite mediums is using cardboard. Like it's chipboard in particular is like one of the coolest surfaces to work on. Or like MDF from Home Depot that you can buy for like $2, like a sheet. That's the best. That's my favorite surface to paint on. Jeff Lafferty used to paint on that all the time. Yeah. On just cheap MDF, and it's like it's literally yeah. But MDF's like 30 cents for like a, you know what I mean? It's like
right, yeah.
And if you buy it at an art store, it's $25 because it's artboard, Right. But it's like, you don't need fancy stuff. Like none of us started with fancy stuff, I don't think, as kids. Like I think, but yeah, like, that's why it's good to have a class like Hobbies too, because when I was younger, I used to think that the comic board, Hav and I are kind of a similar age, I think. So same Scott. And it's like, I think when we were younger, there was like at comic shops, they would sell like comic book paper, or you could order it through like a, an ad in your comic. It was garbage, but it was like crazy expensive, and it would come in like a big sealed box, and it'd have blue lines printed on it.
Yeah.
And I remember just always thinking, well, I can't do that because it's just expensive. I remember getting 1 pack of that as a kid and never touching it because I was just like, well, I'll never be able to afford it again. And little did I know, there's like this thing called bristlepboard where you could buy a whole pad of bristlepboard for like 1/3 of the cost of this stupid pack, right. And measure it out yourself.
Now you can actually buy the pre-ruled stuff, usually at like a Michael's or something, and
right.
and it's the same price as the regular Bristol board, yeah. But but that wasn't always the case.
But it's great that kids can have a class that's specifically in comics, because that is a subject that you could, like, again, I get to touch on it when I teach. But that's a class that you could literally teach for like a year, Chris has a good point. If the materials are too precious, you never make good progress.
That goes doubly for sketchbooks.
Yeah. Exactly.
What do you think, Hob? Like, do you feel like, like, do you try to kind of, like, how do you kind of enable the kids to like be able to make art with whatever tools they got,
Well, because we provide the supplies, I make sure we buy like just a real cheap, basic blank notebook, nothing fancy.
Yeah.
I mean, we use bristle paper because that's what I use.
Yeah.
And then we use micron markers because they're really thin points.
Yep.
So yeah, I keep it real simple and basic. I like when the kids will take a photograph of the micron because I want to go and have mom buy some. So that's really cool that they're really in tune into that. But yeah, I try to keep it as entry level as possible. I was just thinking when you guys were talking, I was remembering when I took a comic class as a kid, a comic class, right? I read about it in the paper or something because there was no internet, and it was a local community center. And I looked up the guy's name, right? So here's how I looked up an artist's name back in the day. I went through all my comics. Avengers, open it.
Yeah.
Jim Mooney, Herb Trimpe. Okay, that's not the name I see listed. So I couldn't find what comic this guy did. But my mom dropped me off at the class, and there was a bunch of kids there. It was a big class. And then I sat down. I got my desk, sat down. And then the guy shows up, and then he goes, I think there was either a box of comics or he passed out the comics. And he, okay, guys, just start drawing. And then he sat down. Like, that's it? It's not a class.
Yeah.
That's not, yeah. He literally he wasn't up at the board doing anything. He just said start drawing.
Wow. Yeah.
So I remember I told myself as a kid, kind of like young Bruce Wayne, like, I will never do that if I ever teach a class.
Yeah.
I will never. So I don't. Like I said, I told you guys I do a lot of studio time, but that's after we had a couple of weeks of working together on a comic thing.
Yeah.
Learning about dialogue balloons, stuff like that. I have no problem. I have no qualms about me not lecturing for the hour or teaching because they're just drawing. I'm earning my money by giving them that platform the space to work on their comic that we all set up earlier. So
yeah, and for my art classes, I feel like it's it's a lot of like tutorials at first where I do the project before they do it or with them. Like I'll kind of work on it with them with like a projector kind of putting that up on our screens or whatever. But it's like I feel like the real learning tends to happen when they're actually working and you're able to kind of get one-on-one time with the kids as they're working and go, hey, like, maybe fix the arm here or whatever it is that you're kind of, or you find the kid who's like, scared to kind of move forward and you get to give them a little encouragement to kind of like, no, just be brave, go for it. I feel like that's kind of the best way. And in an ideal world, I feel like, art classes would be really small classes with a lot of one-on-one time with a seasoned artist, right? Where they're able to just kind of sit with you as you draw and kind of like guide you in what you're not doing, what you are doing. That to me is like that's the real benefit. Otherwise, like, I feel like a lot of this stuff, you could just have people go on YouTube. I feel like the advantage of an art class with a seasoned artist is being able to like respond in real time or during a demo, have somebody stop you and like go, oh, I didn't really follow that. Like, could you, walk through that again, that kind of stuff. I feel like that one-on-one stuff's the important part.
The thing about the studio time is the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
I mean, because the kids will be there for 30 or 40 minutes and they were just drawing. Yeah, it's fine if they talk to their friend next to them, having little conversations here and there. But none of them ever looks up at me like, "Hey, man, what do I do? You're not doing, you're not teaching me," because they already laid out the characters. They already did the rough draft. They like having the studio time. Maybe they don't have time at home to do it because they have siblings or other stuff going on. So I've never had a principal or a director of an organization walk in on my class and go, "Hey, what are you? You're not teaching." They've never done that because they come and they see the kids working. I mean, I bring this up a lot because as I started learning more about letting them do studio time, because I used to feel guilty, like, oh wait, I'm getting paid to teach. I'm not teaching for 40 minutes. But that's part of teaching.
Yeah, that is the teaching. Yeah. It's like a science class, like in science, in like a biology classroom. If you don't have kids working in a lab, like what are you doing?
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like there is a lab element, and art is a lab. Like it's you give them the materials, you kind of walk them through what's expected and stuff like that. But other than that, like it's just facilitating creativity and trying to just keep the vibe good and guide the kids, be there. What in education they call it scaffolding or whatever, but it's like that. You're providing scaffolds for them to build on, and like a scaffold, if they fall down, you're there to like catch them and kind of keep them held up. But it's the rote learning stuff where you're in front of a room going blah 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 blah, and kids are just bored, falling asleep. That's just not teaching, or just handing out worksheets. Those are my two pet peeves as a teacher. Is like those are not, both are necessary sometimes. Like let's say you do need to learn about Ditko for a second, so maybe like 10 minutes or something, or 20 minutes or that. But yeah, there needs to be drawing in a drawing class. Yeah.
Well, if I want to teach the kids to be independent thinkers, I will bring up Ditko.
Hell
be
yeah.
Your own person. Do your thing your way.
Yeah.
The hell with everybody else. Another thing I like in my classes, and I had this at another school, the high school kids, is when they come up to me with their like sketchbook or their drawings, because kids don't.
Yeah.
And this guy kept showing every time I come to class, he'd show me his new drawings, and I guess they're very much based on what was it, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? I mentioned that earlier. I mean, it's an anime, elongated character, but I mean, he's and I'll be happy to look at him. I know, because the fact that he wants to show me is I think is a good thing, because he knows oh, this guy's professional. I mean, we're not bragging. You guys are in the same position. When the kid has access to someone like us, like, oh, this guy is a professional, real artist. He's out there. He's known, whatever. So he's showing me his work, and I'm complimenting him and asking him questions. Oh, when did you do this? How long did that take? Whatever. So he keeps coming back every week, showing me before class starts, showing me his latest. I thought that was great, and I'm glad I make myself available in that regard.
Yeah, you got to. And
I would have loved to talk to a professional when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
We didn't have that.
No, and it makes such a big impact. It's like it's an important thing. The other thing is, man, we're trying to teach people to be makers, and I think that's a really positive thing to do, because, there's a lot of consumption out there. It's kind of nice to teach people to, like, make stuff, Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll never get in anybody's way of what they want to pursue, but I'd much rather you create your own characters and stories than trying to be like the 791st person to draw Thor.
Yeah.
No offense to anybody, but
no, I mean, we had a guy who's worked for the Big Two on last week, or was that last week, Scott? Or am I getting that confused? Yeah. And he's worked for all the major publishers in comics on big properties. Like, I think the coolest one he's working on right now is Conan, which is kind of rad, right? But it's like the dude's not as amped about those things as his own personal stuff, and he was even talking about it, like, because he's building his own publishing company to put out his own stuff because he's sick of being a hand for the Big Two. And it's like, well, that's the stuff most people even at the Big Two want to see, is like, well, what's your thing? Like, what's your own vision?
Right, they do want to see what
like,
you're doing.
The other stuff gets really boring. Yeah, I love it.
Cool.
Well, cool. So Hav, you got a Kickstarter. Maybe we run through that real quick. What is the man from Mictlan? Am I pronouncing that wrong? Mictlan? Is it?
No, Mictlan. Yeah, that's correct.
Mictlan. Okay. Yeah. So why don't we run through what is that, and how can people kind of get a hold of that if they're interested?
Yeah, I'll do it really quick here. So it's basically the third story in the Muerto saga. A couple years ago, I kind of rebooted the character, whatever, and I went to graphic novel format. So I redrew the original stories and put them in this bigger graphic novel, Days of the Dead. And then last time I did Casa del Diablo. So this time is the new storyline is the man from Mictlan. But I didn't want to do I didn't want to do a whole graphic novel again, even though eventually it will be collected, because I didn't want to disappear for like 2 years with no product.
Right.
So I go, I love floppies, so I'll do it as a 3-issue series. So this is for issue 1, to be followed by 2 and 3. So it's his new adventure. He's makes it down to Tijuana. Finally, he's trying to meet this medicine man, curandero. Maybe he thinks he can help him with his problem, being an Aztec zombie and such. And he meets this girl, so there's love in there, but there's also violence because he meets this Mexican cartel for hire called La Mordida. La Mordida means the bite, but it's also Spanish slang for like a bribe, a bite. So they're called La Mordida. And yeah, that's basically it. And that's the Kickstarters for that first issue. It's 55 pages of story, one extra page. So it's a fat comic, 56
Yeah,
pages.
that's bigger than a floppy, I would say.
Yeah. It's a thickie.
I think,
So-
yeah.
So the other
Or
two,
what Kevin Cross
Chubby.
used to call him, Chubby. Yeah.
be careful there. So yeah, all 3 issues will be this double-sized thing because the graphic novel is my longest one so far. It's like 170 pages, I think. Normally they're about 120, 130.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of story to cover in this book. But when you do your own printing, you can make the books as long as you want. They don't have to be stuck to 120-page format. So yeah, that's what I'm working on, and it's been going on. I launched it this morning, like at 6:00. And yeah, we were at 70% when I started this show, so I'm gonna check it once I get off.
Yeah.
And
Just hopefully people have backed it. If you haven't already, definitely check it out.
Yeah.
I backed it. I'm sure Josh, if he hasn't already, he will. So yeah. And there is a link in the description, so you can just click on that link. It'll take you right to the Kickstarter.
Cool.
And then in the next week or so, also just probably the best thing to do is search Indiegogo for Steve Ditko, and I'm sure that
Yes.
will pop up your Steve
Yeah,
Ditko
should be the
book
only
that's going to be
one.
launching next week.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. I know.
Yeah.
No, I love it, but man, 2 Kickstarter campaigns a week of each other. Good luck, Hoff. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it is. But
and I did one. I had to do recovering from mine. Yeah.
you have the campaign, and then the campaign ends. You got to let loose ends, and then you got to ship it all out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's all that shipping for
Yeah.
a couple of weeks. So
Yeah.
then you can wind down.
I
And then
love
you got to
it.
work on the next book.
Yeah, it's a never-ending cycle. It's funny. I'm in crunch time on a book right now, and I keep thinking, man, I can't wait till this is done. And it's ironic because it's like the second it's done, I'm just gonna do the same thing again. Like, it's like you're always driving for the finish line, and it's funny because it's like once you get there, there's another. It's I'm just gonna keep going. I love it. You guys should make sure you're supporting Hobbs' work, and definitely check out Los Comics too. Yeah, is there anywhere else you want to send people, Hob, or are those
I
2
always send them to my
Kickstarters the main
Instagram.
place?
I
Awesome.
sent in my Instagram, Javier Los Comics, Javier LosComex. That I update that the most. Instagram.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. I'm excited to. If you guys are obviously in Javier's area, Whittier, right? You want to probably keep an eye out for comics courses too. They might be popping up, but it may not even be in that area. It could be anywhere in kind of this Southern California region. So keep an eye out for Javier's, comics classes too. Like honestly, when my kid gets a little older, maybe I'll have him. Maybe I'll have him take Hobbs' classes. That sounds super fun.
Cool.
Yeah. My internet is crap today. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. Make sure you pick up Jacob's Apartment 2 Stories after you back Man from Miquelon. And also consider listening to No Saboteurs or my own solo stuff on as Joshua Kemble on Spotify and music streaming platforms everywhere. Scott, where can people find your work, and how do they keep track of this crazy train that is called the Artcasters?
Yeah, so first thing you want to do is go to my YouTube channel, CircWorks Art Labs on YouTube. Check out my latest video on, the classic Woolly Willy magnetic toy and what I kind of do to reinvent that. It's super fun. Definitely check out that video. And after you're done with that, you can go to my website, circworks.com, and pick up Young and the Dead. This is the trade. This is the full story. The complete story, all in one volume, and is available on my website at circworks.com. And this show, the Artcasters, we do the show every single week. It does bounce back and forth from Josh's channel to my own channel. That can get a little confusing, but if you want to know exactly when we're going to go live, whose channel is going to be on, who the guest is, all that stuff, just join our mailing list. We don't spam you or anything. All we do is about 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so before we go live, we send out a newsletter or an email letting you know where you can find it. So you guys can tune in like all the fine people here in the chat. So we want to thank everyone that's tuned in the chat. Pretty lively chat tonight. So thank you everyone for your questions. And join us next week. It'll be on my channel. And join that mailing list so you'll know all about it.
All right, awesome. Thanks to everybody in the chats, and we will see you guys next week on Scott's channel. And Javier, thanks again for coming on. Always fun having you on.
Yeah, thank you, Scott and Josh, so much for having me back, and thanks to all the comments. I was catching up on them. Sorry I didn't respond to them all, but thanks for everybody who tuned in and left some comments. Good night, everybody.
See you guys.